All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angel Rivera. I'm the host of Angel in the Afternoon, and this is a special Sunday edition of the show alongside my very special guest today, Joe McGaha, host of the podcast Two Dogs in the Land of Cats. Joe, how are you this evening? Afternoon.
I'm good. I'm good. A little tired, but that's what Sundays are for, right?
Yeah, I mean, my weekends are usually tough too, but I'm really busy on the weekends. On the weekdays, it's like, oh, okay, go home, do this, that. On the weekends, I'm all over the place, especially now that I have all these shows to do.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, but yeah, I wanted to talk a few things today, and the first thing is, as we all know, a couple of weeks ago, yeah, a week ago, pretty much. Today's the 9th. Mexico elected their first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who's, by the way, Jewish.
Yeah.
Ironically, in a mostly Catholic country, but I digress. They elected a Jewish president, and she's a protege of AMLO. So Mexico's basically doubled down on AMLO's policies. So it isn't like they've decided to go a totally different direction. No, they just said, "Oh yeah, AMLO's policies. We want 6 more years of that." So there you go. So yeah, she was elected, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. First off.
Yeah. From what I understand, well, this was a very contentious election season. I think 34 candidates were murdered during the Mexican elections. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I interviewed a few people in Mexico about this. One American that lives down there, and then a Mexican journalist, and then a member of the opposition party who was for Xochitl Galvez.
Uh
Um,
huh.
I think uh, AMLO, López Obrador is very popular with a lot of people. At least
Hmm.
with it's kind of like here. I mean, at least with the people in the big cities, the left for the most part elite, they like him. He's done a few things. He created a new train down in Yucatan, which they're putting a lot of money into, but I guess it's starting jobs and that kind of thing. I was supposed
Yeah.
to interview a journalist this morning, but he postponed it, so we're going to do that tomorrow night. But he had stated,
Okay.
I haven't read his entire article, but he said that Lopez Obrador lifted 30,000 Mexicans out of poverty. I know Lopez Obrador and all of Mexican politics has to deal with the narcos, and uh,
Hmm.
they work kind of with them to a certain extent because they have to. I mean, they can't function otherwise.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's I know last year there was I believe a hurricane that went through Acapulco that just destroyed that city, and a lot of people were complaining about Lopez Obrador because help didn't come as quickly as it should have. People needed water and food, and
Yeah.
the Oxos, which is like their version of 7-Eleven, were just raided. Everything was raided, and Acapulco for a long time has been kind of abandoned. It was a popular vacation spot back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s for Americans. I mean, it's in all kinds of movies. People used to go down there all the time,
Yeah.
but now it's run by the narcos. So like, it's kind of as some of my friends in Spain would say, God has turned his back on that city, sadly. But
Uh huh.
we'll see. Claudia Sheinbaum, she's the first Jewish president. She's also the first female president of Mexico. Um,
Yeah.
so that'll be interesting. I think it's probably going to be more of the same. I don't know how her relationship is going to be with the next U.S. president, which we won't know until the fall, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Most Mexican presidents tend to be they tend to be what's the word I'm looking for? They tend to be they tend to do what the US president wants anyways, because they're right next to the US, and they don't want to piss off the US. Like even AMLO, like he wasn't he allowed Trump to do the stay in Mexico policy, which if you guys don't know, it allows it forces migrants to stay in Mexico while their asylum is worked out somehow. So yeah, AMLO allowed that, and I expect Claudia Sheinbaum to basically be subservient. What I'm looking for to the next U.S. president, whether it be Biden or Trump. Most I like I said on your show, I think Trump's going to win the election. I still think that, but Yeah, I mean, we're in the Mexican president's most likely going to be subservient. It's unfortunate. I wonder how Mexican people would react to that if they hear me say that. But yeah, most Mexican presidents are subservient to the U.S. president. And you mentioned the narcos, and there's no good solutions to that. I mean, AMLO tried los abrazos no something policy. What was it called?
No balazos, yeah, basically
No balazos,
not,
exactly.
you know, yeah. I mean, basically,
Yeah,
to work with gangsters,
yeah,
you go to hug them and you'll probably get a bullet.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Abrazos no balazos, or
yeah,
hugs and no bullets policy. It didn't work,
yeah,
but problem is, just like the previous two presidents, Peña Nieto and I forget the other one. They tried to go to war, direct war with the narcos, with military, and that didn't work either. That caused hundreds of thousands of deaths too. So there's no good solutions to the narco problem right in our southern border. So and you're a lot closer to the border than I am. So it's like it's just no good solutions. The only solution that I see maybe the U.S. invasion of Mexico with special forces, but even then, that causes a whole other issues like sovereignty. The Mexican government won't be happy with that, and not that it stopped the U.S. I mean, Obama killed Bin Laden in Pakistan without even telling the Pakistani government. So but the U.S. doesn't care about that. But that's the only solution that I see, and quite frankly, that's not a good solution either. So I don't find any real solutions to the narco situation. I
yeah.
don't
And
know what you have. Yeah, go ahead.
I I basically feel that the U.S. government works hand in hand with the narcos a lot, and they know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with them. The CIA has worked with the different carteles for years and years, going all the way back to the 80s. In fact, there's a documentary about how a CIA agent was there when Kiki Camarena was tortured and murdered. And
Uh
basically,
huh.
that was because,
Yeah, I know that story.
yeah. So, you know, I think that they work hand in hand with them. I think if they wanted to take out a leader of the narcos, well, I mean, they did the whole thing with El Chapo, but El Chapo really wasn't the top of the snake anyway. The head of the snake, he was higher up, but they make a lot
Mm-hmm.
of him. They usually sacrifice somebody, so the big leader,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't see troops ever going into Mexico, but we could possibly send arms and also possibly send drones or that kind of thing. We did train Mexican troops who ended up being their own cartel. The Zetas were a military,
Zetas.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they
That
used
didn't work too well.
no, exactly. They use their military training to be
Uh-huh.
cartel because they don't. I mean, they pay so little in the Mexican military that makes more.
Yeah.
You see these people that you're fighting against living this luxurious life while you're struggling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the choice is fairly simple.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a very simple choice. Mexican police, the same problem too. Is like they make no money, so it's like the cartels are like, here, money or bullets, plata o plomo. It's here, so it's up to you. So I take the money. It's like Mexico is basically a narco state at this point, and there's no good solutions. I mean, either A, we'll just play the game, rest one of them, and let them do whatever, and because unfortunately gringos or white people and Americans, let's say, we are very addicted to cocaine and all the drugs that come through Mexico. So it's like as long as we continue to buy the product, they will continue to fund it, or to provide it. So yeah, so there's nothing going to change as long as we stop doing cocaine, basically, which is not going to happen because we all love cocaine, or at least the people who have money love cocaine. So
Yeah, and even the narcos in Mexico um, put out a rule to stop fentanyl because it was killing so many of their clients, and
yes,
it's all about return business. So if your client dies, then you don't have a customer anymore to sell
nope,
your drugs to. So yeah, it's I think that they get their money from drugs, but they also get their money from human trafficking. They're the ones that facilitate people coming up through from Venezuela and all the way up to the
hmm
border and across it, and people coming from China, from all over the place. It's facilitated through these same people, and they make money off it. I can't remember the amount that the typical amount that's paid, but I think it's in the thousands to be able to come from like the southern Mexican border all the way up to the United States border. And
Yeah, it's locoyotes. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
the rich. I
they're
mean,
also
yeah. Go ahead.
they're also associated with the cartels, coyotes, whatever. I mean, why am I can't I say that word right now? But it's coyote. It's basically people who like you said, transfer the people from to the border. Yeah. Why I
Yeah,
don't know why I can't spit it out right now, but yeah, I mean, and it I mean, it makes people. Well, AMLO did a lot of social programs, like social services, like they program for the seniors to give them money. That's basically Social Security, as I called it here in the U.S., but they didn't get into very recently in Mexico. And they also did, the trains. We discussed that too with they spending money on the trains, and they spent money on. AMLO got rid of the new plane that Peña Nieto got right before he left office. He auctioned it off, and Scheinbaum said in her address like, "Oh, that plane ain't coming back. Trust me. We don't use those presidential planes." And so it's gonna Mexico's not gonna change. It is what it is under AMLO, not under Scheinbaum when she comes in October. It'd be interesting to see how she deals with Trump or Biden, but I think Trump's going to win. But it'd be interesting to see how she deals with Trump and how Trump deals with her, whether he would take her seriously or dismiss her, because Trump tends to be more, what's what I'm looking for, male, more traditional male, so it's like, oh, a female president, I can bully her, right? So,
yeah, and she's fluent in English. She went to college in the United States,
uh huh,
and so because of that, I think that she's definitely planning on being an ally of the United States. Anybody who's going to be president of Mexico kind of has to do that because
yeah,
we
100%.
control it. We control our neighbors, and we do that for our own interests mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Same thing with the Canadians. It's like they have to be an ally. You can't just say, "Oh, well, the United States is problematic." And it's like, "Oh yeah, well, here's 100,000 troops on your border." So they have to be basically friendly to us or to our government. But yeah, I was reading on Twitter or X or whatever that there's some pro-Palestinian people that aren't happy with Sheinbaum's election in Mexico because she's Jewish and they perceive her to be more pro-Zionist. I'm not sure how true that is because I didn't research that enough. I'm not sure if you would know any different, but she's allegedly pro-Zionist, and how she spent a lot of some time in Israel, and how she's friendly to Netanyahu. Like again, I don't know enough about this to comment, but it'd be interesting to see if you know anything about that or not.
I haven't heard about that, but I will look into that further because that's an interesting take as well. There is a very large Jewish community in Mexico City. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of Jews throughout Latin America, and they all do have a connection to Israel. As I think I lived in Israel for a year,
Yeah.
from '84 to '85. And, two of my closest friends out there were from Uruguay, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was. You see people speaking in Spanish all over Israel, and they're mostly Latin Americans, Argentinians,
Yeah.
and, but there are Mexicans too, and I've met Mexican Jews here as well. Um, and there was a famous broadcaster in Mexico, Jacobo Zabludowski, who was, I think he was on Univision for years and years and years, but super well known,
Yeah.
super popular, and even like, if you go back in time, there's just a big connection to Eastern Europe and Mexico City as well, even with Trotsky uh, dying in Mexico, which he had to get out of Russia, and Stalin sent a Spaniard of all people to kill him. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so this goes all these connections, show us that it's as I hate to quote Hillary Clinton, but it's a global village. We are a village. We are all connected, and
Mm-hmm.
between what's going on in Israel and what's going on in Ukraine, I think we are getting very close to World War III now. They're firing missiles into Russia. Which,
Yeah. The Ukraine or Biden administration is indirectly approving U.S. missiles to be fired into Russia. It's like, we're not telling you to do it, but if you want to do it, go right ahead. We're not going to stop you. You know, that's one of those things. And it's not a direct approval. Like, yes, you can fire these missiles into Russia, but once you give indirect approval, Zelensky is psychotic enough to start firing into Russia. And then if that happens, Putin's going to escalate. And if he escalates, then the U.S. and NATO is going to escalate. If they escalate, yeah, we're in World War III most likely. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. I mean, it's kind of happened before. I mean, we were I thought we were close to World War III last year, but cooler heads kind of prevailed. And Israel is also directly attacking Lebanon now. The last few days, I mean, they directly attacked Lebanon. So it's like, oh, here we go. I mean, just further escalation by Netanyahu. It's like, you don't have enough of Gaza or the West Bank or wherever. No, you also need to attack Lebanon. And you also need to, they also bombed Syria. And the Iranian consulate was in Syria. So it's like, they're bombing Syria, Lebanon, the West Bank, the Rafah. You know, I mean, they're bombing all over the place. And it's like, are you really trying to recreate Greater Israel? That's what it seems like they're trying to do. They're bombing every place in the world with Greater Israel. You know, in the Bible, where God's chosen land, allegedly. Thank you, MCBC. Appreciate you joining us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they're necessarily trying to follow the Bible and what they're doing. I think that they're trying to wipe out their enemies once and for all, and also dominate the region. They do have people on their side in the Arab world now too. It's not like it used to be where everybody would stand up against them, at least verbally, if not, But I mean, even before, years past, the Saudi Arabians would send money to pay for terrorists. They'll send a young guy $25,000 for his family, and if you're living in poverty, then he'll do a suicide bomb for them. And then that shifted, and now the money is coming from Iran, and of course Iran and Saudi Arabia are two different sects of Islam. So so it's funny, we meddle into things in other countries, and we try to basically get everybody to go with us, but we get in between relationships, people that already hate each other, and like they say, you're the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but it's not really true, because they could all
I forget. I think the Saudis are Sunni and the Iranians are Shiites. Or is it reverse? I got confuses me a little bit, but yeah, they're two different sects of Islam, and they have their totally different beliefs. I think basically what it is the Sunnis believe they believe that Prophet Muhammad explicitly designated a successor or not. One does and one doesn't. It's kind of confusing. It's like the Christianity sects. There's like a million of them, and Jesus did different things, or like they did this. No, Jesus didn't do that. It's like, I'm confused. So yeah, but I digress. I mean, it's confusing, and I think Jordan is definitely a friend of Israel now. Jordan and there's a couple other countries out there that now like favorable to Israel. That's because they want favorability from the U.S., but they want more guns or arms or money or whatever. So it's like they're like, okay, yeah, we like Israel now. Can you give us money or weapons or leave us alone or whatever?
Yeah, and it takes the responsibility off of them to take in Palestinian refugees, which they really don't want to do either. Mostly the Palestinian refugees that have ended up in Jordan end up in camps. They don't really integrate into society, and they don't look at them the same. Everybody says, well, if they really cared that much about them, why aren't they taking them in? But they're very isolated in their own way. They don't really want them to be part of their society in the same way, because they kind of, there is a classism within the Arab world as well, and there some Arabs think of themselves as higher class and as better than other Arabs, and many of them think of themselves as better than Western culture altogether. but we kind of got them to become superpowers because it all came from oil. When they found oil in Saudi Arabia, then the Wahhabis, we chose the people that we were going to put in charge of it and let them enrich themselves off of it. But we were making much more money off of it, us and the British,
Yeah.
British petroleum. So
The during World War II, Roosevelt said that the Saudi Arabia is like the most important country in the world to us, something to that effect, because they have oil and they were willing to sell it to us cheaply for the war effort. So it's like Saudi Arabia, most important country, protect them at all costs, and that's pretty much been the U.S. government policy ever since. Nearly 100 years later, it's still the same. U.S. residents are mostly subservient to the Saudis because we need their cheap oil. So especially now, Biden recently was begging for cheaper oil prices from the Saudis because our gas prices are kind of high, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and so far the Saudis are like maybe, but we like Trump better. So so there's a conspiracy theory out there that says that right before the election that Mohammed bin Salman and OPEC is going to make gas prices go up on purpose in order to help Trump win the election. I don't know how true that is. I have no evidence, but it's one of those things where people on Twitter or X have claimed Biden supporters like, are they going to screw Biden out of the election? They're going to make gas prices go up right before the election. I'm like, maybe. Actually, if the
I
Saudis like
don't,
Trump better.
I don't think Trump needs that extra boost. I think with
uh,
the weaponization of the Department of Justice and all the lawsuits, they're trying to get him out any way they can. Um,
mm-hmm.
but it's just making him more and more popular because people are kind of seeing, well, why, the people the charges that they're throwing against him, just like the charges against Hunter Biden, they're not really anything major. And the charges against Trump, many of them were the same things that Hillary, basically did, were destroying documents and
Yeah.
confidentiality. And it's like, hey, there's not an equal, justice. And if we're going to put ex-presidents on trial, which I'm not against doing, but let's put them on trial for the real crimes, the crimes against humanity, the war
Yeah.
crimes. They're all guilty of that. I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
Every U.S. president post World War II has committed some type of war crime. Every single one of them. Some more than others, but mostly everyone did. Putting Trump on trial for essentially what's a clerical error is just ridiculous to me. It's like, and somehow they turned that into misdemeanors, into felonies. And the theory behind it was, well, I mean, it helped somehow paying off Stormy Daniels helped Trump win the election in 2016. But we all kind of knew about that affair. It was back in 2006. We all kind of knew about it. It was always rumored, and Trump didn't deny it or confirm it. But we always knew that, yeah, he probably did have an affair with that porn star. But yeah, I mean, why did they? And their theory didn't make much sense to me legally. And when they found him guilty, I'm like, he's not going to go to jail. And even now, they're kind of admitting in New York, like, he'll probably get probation or maybe some house arrest or something. At worst, he's not going to actually go to jail. And tomorrow, Trump is scheduled to meet with probation in New York, like in Manhattan, the probation department, for an initial interview before the hearing in July. So that's tomorrow morning with his lawyer and stuff. So I just read that on X. I'm like, oh, okay, so they're beginning the process now of his sentence in July. So it's just absurd.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the Hunter Biden, which is their case that they're claiming shows that law enforcement is even-handed. His case is not really about anything that's important either, because nobody really
No.
cares about the gun that much. Really, we care about the money that was funneled from him, from Ukraine and from China to the big guy, 10%, and then
Mm-hmm.
also, if we're going to charge him with things that were on the laptop from the pictures, which they claimed that it was all salacious and that the press, the media, everybody was fascinated with it because of the sex pictures. But no, that showed clearly that he was trafficking minors across state lines for sex and
Mm-hmm.
corrupting them with drugs and other things. So there's so many other charges they could have against him that they're just not even touching. And
Oh, they won't touch that. Not
yeah,
even they will not touch that, because if even back in 2020 when the laptop story initially broke, Like the FBI and the CIA knew about it weeks in advance, and they knew the New York Times were writing a piece about it to break the story. So they were telling everybody in the media and everybody in social media companies, "Oh yeah, there's a Russian disinformation campaign coming in about 6 to 8 weeks." So if something breaks, ignore it. We'll trust us. Just ignore it. And they all did. They realized it was the Hunter Biden laptop story, and they all ignored it. Not only that, the Twitter banned the New York Times for like a week from their Twitter account.
The New York Post, yeah, yeah.
Oh, the Post. You're right. Sorry. Yeah, the New York Post. They banned them for a week, and I'm like, you banning a corporate media outlet? That tells me that this is true. There's got to be something to this, because it's not like they banned me or they banned some random person that reported it. No, it's the New York Post. It's an important newspaper. You can say it's a right wing outlet or owned by Rupert Murdoch or whatever, but it's still a legitimate news source, like the Wall Street Journal. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're banning the New York Post, that tells me there's definitely something to this story. And they, ironically, liberals talk about election interference all the time. Like the Russians interfered, Trump did this. No, no, no. The FBI and the CIA interfered in 2020 when they actively told people not to report this, and everybody listened. So yeah, they're the ones that interfered, not Trump or not the Russians. Definitely not the Russians.
Yeah. Well, it was the 52 heads of security that signed that letter that was even used in a debate, and it was completely false, But somehow
Mm-hmm.
that election, tampering at all. But it totally was, because they suppressed a story that in every poll people have shown. I don't always trust polls, because basically nobody wants to participate in a poll, and who answers their phone even these days.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think if people knew about it, it might make them question things a little bit more. The
Yeah.
laptop, that was a pending thing, and there was a lot of information on there that still hasn't come out. Just like, you know, with Jeffrey Epstein's client list, is it ever going to come out? Probably not. At this point.
Yeah. I wouldn't hold my breath. I mean, that's been suppressed and buried somewhere. I mean, that black book. And yeah, I mean, talking about that laptop, that laptop's never going to really come publicly. I mean, it's in at the FBI headquarters in Washington, and they had to admit in court and Hunter Biden trial, oh yeah, the laptop's actually real. We kind of pretended it wasn't, but it actually is real. You have to admit to an open court. And I think Hunter Biden's no, his brother's wife testified, and they're all testifying. But to me, the case, it's about what, guns and crack. Is like, he's a crackhead. Okay, we already knew that, but I don't really care about that, and I don't care about the gun either. So it's like, is it really gonna the right thing is gonna affect Joe Biden's reelection bid? And I'm like, he's already losing, and he's probably gonna lose anyways, even without Hunter Biden going through all this stuff. So my conspiracy theory is he'll be replaced at the convention. Joe Biden, right before the convention, will say, "I'm older. I'm getting sick. I gotta watch after my son. He's on trial, so I'm just gonna step aside." And the party will choose a nominee at the convention. Most likely, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, because he's already kind of trying to step into the to the presidency. So it's like, I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, that's what I think is going to end up happening.
It's a possibility. I mean, I can't see them really running Kamala. I can't see them
Oh
running.
no.
Yeah, um, and I can't see them running Biden. I mean, he's shown. I'm interested to see how the debates go, but the debates are already kind of. There are all these rules put in place that really are not standard for debates. They're going to silence the other person's mic when one person is talking. The people that are handling the debates are going to be all left wing media, establishment media. So it's not going to be balanced at all. And
No.
yeah, I think it's going to be manipulated. They're going to do everything they can to try and push him.
Joe,
Yeah.
Joe Biden, Donald Trump wanted debates, and Joe Biden's like, "Oh yeah, we'll do debates, but here's my list of demands." Which, as you mentioned, some of them, they want the mic to be muted. Joe Biden doesn't want an audience either. It's another issue he has. No audience, mics being muted. Only certain questions are allowed. The Biden campaign wants control over the moderators, so it's like, and I'm like, if I'm Trump, why would I debate you in those circumstances? He's winning anyway, so it's like, you need this debate more than I do. I mean, Biden's the one losing. So, but yeah, I mean, somehow they want control over the debates. Had a nightmare. Newsom was the one being sworn in as president. Oh, that's all. I think that's all of our nightmares. So that's not just yours, but yeah, I mean, the Fannie Willis trial in Georgia was delayed indefinitely while they handle this whole Fannie Willis being disqualified situation in court. So the Georgia Court of Appeals had decided to basically put a hold on the case until they can hear arguments on why Fannie Willis should be disqualified or not. And if they do, so they don't have to come to the decision until next year. They're going to hear arguments in August, and they're going to make a decision some point next year, maybe March of next year. And if they do disqualify Fannie Lewis, she has a chance to appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. So that's going to be another 6 months to a year before they decide. So we're looking at 2026, maybe 2027 for the case continues. So that case is dead. Fannie Willis is done. Let's see. The Jack Smith cases aren't going anywhere either. So basically, this liberal dreams of convicting Trump of 92 felonies is not going to happen. He got convicted of 34, and he won't go to jail. The other ones are pretty much dead in the water. So, eh.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but it blows my mind. I think that a lot of people have kind of suspended their morals because they have this derangement syndrome. They think that Trump is Hitler. So basically, if Hitler is about to come into power, then things that you normally wouldn't do, like break all the rules, suspend democracy so that you can send the justice system after him, it's all justified because what's the consequences? They act like the world is going to end when he comes into power again. He already was in power. He was already president for 4 years, and we saw how.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's ridiculous, and we saw the reaction. That reaction is going to happen again because
Oh
we
God, yeah.
crying in the streets. I think there are going to be riots, after the election, and I think there are going to be riots at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It's going to be like 68, except they're not going to be
Yeah.
able to close because they blocked off, I think, a mile outside of the convention.
Yeah, and the administration or the Democrats are planning to have Biden accept the nomination online over the internet. So he won't even be in person in Chicago. He'll accept the nomination online, and then he'll give his speech, and which is probably gonna be pre-recorded because he it's past his bedtime usually when they accept their nomination. So he'll accept it, be pre-recorded, make sure it looks good, and the president will. And that's it. That's the convention. He won't even be in Chicago, but yeah, the Chicago Police Department they're planning like a 3 mile cordon around the convention center. So there'll be protests, but none of the Democratic Party elite will see it. So that's what they care about. They don't want to see the riffraff with their Palestine protests. So yeah, the Republican convention is where this year? Is it in Cleveland or
I
I
can't
can't
remember.
remember.
Yeah, yeah,
It's somewhere in the country, obviously, but
yeah.
but
It'd be like a week after this
it's it's in August, I think.
or July. Is it July or August? Yeah, I think it's going to be like a week or two after Trump's sentence is announced.
Yes, it's July 15th to the 18th. In Milwaukee, that's what it is. Yeah, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
It's a week after he's supposed to be sentenced, so we'll see if he's sentenced to house arrest or anything. Because I assume Trump would be there, if not in person, to accept the nomination to the Republican Party. So yeah, I mean, did you see the short list of Donald Trump for VP? I mean, none of them are really impressive. There's Tim Scott is one.
Even
Uh,
like little Marco, as they call him. Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio. I think he is in the short list. Yeah,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is ridiculous. Like, really? I mean, this is very unimpressive names. It's not like it's. I honestly thought he would have picked Tulsi Gabbard, or at least consider her.
that would be awesome. I would be super excited if he did that. Even though the only thing about Tulsi, I love Tulsi and I love that she calls out the
Uh
hypocrisy,
huh.
the big money and all that. But she does have a military background, and so I think she
Yeah.
before some wars. And I don't really want to support anyone who's pro-war. If possible. I,
Yeah. I thought she would be on the short list, but what I see, she isn't. Let's see. It's Senator.
Yeah, go ahead.
Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio is on the short list. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is on the short list. Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Ben Carson, Lee Stefanik, Donalds, and Senator Cotton. Those are like the short list of Trump. These are his finalists, which is like none of these are really that impressive. I mean, they're all basically pro. Not even all of them. I mean, Marco Rubio and Doug Burgum are kind of establishment Republicans. Tim Scott is kind of a black man and pro-Trump. Byron Donalds, another black man pro-Trump. So I could see him going with like a black man just to say, you see, I'm not racist. I got a black man VP here, So I could see him doing that. Maybe going with Tim Scott or Ben Carson, maybe, or Byron Donalds, the three black guys that are here. At least Stefanik, maybe, because she's a woman. Again, you can go with, see, I'm not sexist. Here's a woman, but
Mhm.
other than that, I don't.
Ramaswamy as well, except that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even on the short list, but as far as at least according to Axios. But yeah, I mean, if Trump would have picked Tulsi Gabbard, it's like, okay, here comes a lot of the progressives who supported Tulsi Gabbard in 20 to at the very least consider supporting Trump.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, and ultimately, really, the vice presidential selection doesn't have that much importance, except if something happens to the president, But
Yeah.
the president, look at, funny, Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, not Tulsi Gabbard. Sorry, Chelsea. Kamala has been
Kamala.
on different shows, like I think she was on Jimmy Kimmel recently, and they just throw all these softball questions at her. They don't ask her anything of substance.
Oh,
And
it's bad.
yeah, I recently
Brutal.
a commentator saying, what we really want to know is, what does she do all day? What does she do? I mean, she's the border czar, hasn't
Yeah,
done anything with the border.
she's
Uh,
supposed to be she's supposed to be the border czar. But the border has not been nothing's been accomplished there for nearly 4 years of the Biden's administration. So basically, if people don't know, what happened was within Biden's first 100 days, he was like, "Oh, the border, it's people are coming over like crazy. We're not doing anything. Let me hand this steaming pile of crap to Kamala Harris. Like, here, you're the border czar now. You fix this mess that I created. Good luck to you. We're gone." And again, they turn around and say, "Well, we were disappointed how Kamala Harris handled the border." Like, yeah, you just set her up. You just gave her a steaming pile of crap and then didn't give her no authority to fix it either. It was more like, here, you do that. You take this mess while we look good over here doing other stuff. So yeah, they just made her look terrible. They buried her. She'll never be president now. I mean, there's no way. She's at least she's not even as popular as Biden is. And Biden is like at 35. She's what, 28 or something? She's a terrible shape. Her VP.
well, everybody knows how she treated people of color, especially in my home state in
Oh
California.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Threw a lot of people in prison for marijuana offenses, and now she jokes about marijuana. In fact, even on Jimmy Kimmel, they were talking about how there's a strain of marijuana called Kamala Kush, or Kamala Kush.
Uh-huh. Oh my god.
And she's laughing, and
It's so cringe.
in prison for that.
It's so cringe, especially since she put a bunch of black people in prison for marijuana and then laughed about it too. And she turns around now, laughs about how there's like a certain pot brand named after her. It's like, I mean, you're the one who put these people in prison. I mean, it just drives me crazy. And then when now you have a Kamala Harris who's basically killing off Joe Biden. I mean, because usually the VP is more popular than the president. So when the president's sagging, the VP can do a debate and save the president from disaster. That's what Biden did with Obama in 2012. Obama had that first debate against Biden, didn't do so well. And then Biden came out and debated Paul Ryan and just crushed Paul Ryan. Is like, oh, okay. I mean, now, and that's how Obama won re-election, or at least that's what the political experts say. But yeah, that's before Biden lost his mind. I mean, he was still with it in 2012. So it was like, now that I've shown a lot of videos on my show recently about how Biden is just completely out of it. In the D-Day celebration, I showed at least 3 videos where he's kind of like, he has the old man look. He's kind of walking like this, and he's
Yeah.
confused, and at one point he started bending over for no reason, like he was gonna take a crap on the floor. I mean, it was just embarrassing. Another time he turned around while everybody's looking this way at the flag, and I think Kamala, no, Jill Biden, and Macron and his wife all turned around awkwardly to like in order not to make Biden look so bad because the flag's over here, but he's for some reason he's looking over here, so it's like let's all just awkwardly kind of turn around, you know. So it's like in order to not make Biden look so bad. I mean, it was horrible. It was a horrible performance by Joe Biden in
Yeah.
France.
From what I understand, part of that happened because Macron was late. I think he was like 2 hours or at least 45 minutes late to the event. So probably what I'm thinking is whatever drugs they gave Biden, like
Uh-huh.
for the State of the Union, they probably gave him again. So he was pumped up when the event was
Yeah.
supposed to start, but then the event didn't start for another 45 minutes. So he came
He's
down.
worn off, yeah, and he's embarrassed himself. I
Yeah.
mean, there was the one where he's bending over and trying to sit down in a chair that wasn't there. It looked like he's gonna crap himself,
Yeah.
but and nobody did anything. They're all like looking away. It's like, will he please stop doing that?
Yeah.
And
There
then
were,
later on, his wife Jill kind of walked him off, you know, like in the middle of the event for no reason. It's like, where is he going? And
yeah.
some people were joking around, well, he has to change his diaper, or you know, he needed his drugs again, like you just said, you know. So it's like it looks bad, you know. It looks horrible.
Yeah, and then Jill Biden flew back to uh, to be at Hunter's trial. So basically, they're constantly lecturing us about uh, the climate crisis and global warming, and they're flying back and forth across the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah,
and that's on our dime too. Besides the
yeah. That's my theory too. I mean, he cried. That's why he was bending over. I said it from my show on Friday, and it's like, yeah, he probably did. Look like he crapped himself. But yeah, I mean, yeah, another thing about global warming. Again, they're flying back and forth in their private jets, and then Biden is like, then they're like, oh, so, or at least some progressives in Congress support the Green New Deal. Oh yeah, one of the most unrealistic pieces of legislation I've ever seen, because the Green New Deal, it sounds nice on paper, maybe, but at the same time, it's like we need to retrofit every single building in the United States to 21st century standards within 10 years. First
yeah,
of all, we don't have enough engineers for that. Second of all, we don't have enough builders and citizens even attempt that. And within 10 years, you might as well say it's just so pie in the sky, unrealistic legislation that even if they passed it, it's like they wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to redo the legislation again. So it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we wasting our time with the Green New Deal?
yeah. It's like what Newsom did, where he basically is trying to get rid of
Yeah.
gas cars. Yeah, that's what yeah,
Yeah.
running cars by I think was it 2035 where we're supposed to, or maybe 2030.
Yeah. 2030, I think it is. Yeah.
Makes sense, because basically the energy, the whole thing with electric vehicles and with a lot of this stuff, it's just a money grab.
Yeah.
The energy is still coming from dirty energy because you have to plug into the wall. It's not, and
Yeah.
the lithium batteries that are mined in Africa, cobalt and lithium, and they're basically a hazard. It's a hazard. You can't just. It's not like old cars where you can just recycle parts and stuff. These
Mhm.
are basically huge batteries.
The Central African Republic is where most of the world's cobalt is at, and it's mostly mined by kids, which is another issue. It's like we're liberals run around and talk about how, oh well, we buy electric cars, in particular Teslas, because we want to save the environment. We want to get rid of dirty energy. Meanwhile, the lithium battery is made of cobalt, which is mostly mined by kids, which is mostly done in Africa, which is, but let's just ignore all that. And another, even if you ignore all that, plugging in, like, where are you gonna, where's our, in California, where's all the electric gonna come from? I mean, the electrical grid cannot handle all these cars being plugged in at the same time, or
Yeah,
mostly at the same time.
an
I
electric.
guarantee, yeah, I
Yeah,
guarantee you'll be more blackouts in California.
And
if you actually attempt that.
yeah, an electric car they say uses 12 times the amount of electricity of a refrigerator. Uh, so it uses a lot of electricity, and yeah, it's not. They even said during hot times, please don't charge your cars so much because the grid can't handle it. And we haven't even gotten to the point where everybody has electric cars yet. So what are we going to do then? I mean, we're just not going to drive, or
either either you're gonna have to you're gonna have to allow to build more nuclear power plants. That's the only option I could see. Oh yeah, just build more nuclear power plants. Yeah, but that's the cleanest form of energy we have. I understand the risk of a power plant melting down and cause like in Chernobyl, but that's the only clean way I could see for California to make more enough electricity to support all these new electric cars. But even that, there's but a lot of liberals are against that too because of the power, of the meltdowns. But so how do you? It's unfeasible then. If you don't want to build more nuclear power plants before 2030, then it's really unfeasible. You can't do this. This is not a policy that's going to make any sense, and you're going to have to repeal it anyway. So,
yeah, I think we have to go with nuclear. And Oliver Stone has really changed his position on nuclear, and he's put out a documentary about it. Really, the risks that were around in the early 80s are no longer as high. There's a lot more safety standards, and it is
yeah,
the best source for energy. We have so many more people now than we had even back in the 80s. And
yeah,
the demand is so high. And look, we're everything we do uses electricity.
yeah,
So we have to do something, because it just like we always put these band-aids on things. Same with like the drought in California. We never fixed it long term. There are all these different things that we try to do, and ultimately, nature sometimes helps us out, and we get a very
yeah.
winter. But other than
Well,
that,
it's politics. It's easy. Quick fixes are easy. It's like, hey, we solved the problem. Like Obamacare was a big, just quick fix. But 15 years later, our healthcare system is still a disaster. But yeah, Obamacare was a quick fix. Out there in California, there's plenty of Gavin Newsom and the Democrats do plenty of quick fixes. And I just want to read this. Wait until everybody is on electric cars and everyone has to charge their battery powered schmooly dildos and the grid will explode. Yeah, thank you, bad cookies. Yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just a disaster. I mean, it's that I think it was Germany, a country that they're like pro clean energy, but at the same time they shut down all their power plants, and now they don't have enough or nuclear power plants. They don't have enough electricity to meet their needs. So now they're kind of like admitting we have to turn on some of our nuclear power plants back on. Turn them back on. So yeah, you have to build nuclear power plants. That's the only way you can get yourself out of this, out of the
yeah.
mess that liberals created. Quite frankly.
Until you find another source that can generate that much energy, we have to go with what our options are, and be honest with ourselves, because that's the thing. Everybody becomes ideological about everything, so they say, no, I'm not going to use that. It's like if you're starving and the only place where you have food is a company that you don't want to buy food from because you're against their politics or whatever. You're
Mhm.
starving. Buy your food.
Yeah,
You need to eat. Sometimes you have to be practical about
yeah,
these. Yeah, so it's
yeah.
best.
A lot of like leftist liberal policies are so on paper they look great, but at the same time it's like so impractical. A lot of times it's like Green New Deal is just insanely impractical. There's so many like for example, even though I still like the idea of a Medicare for all system, like single payer, get everybody health insurance. It's on paper it looks good, but when it comes down to being practical, if you want it, I don't think it'll pass Congress anytime soon. I don't think within I'm 37, turning 38 in August. Within my lifetime, I don't see it passing. I mean, it's like it's just so difficult right now. So I I still like Medicare for all as the ultimate solution, but I'm really leaning towards doing like a Medicare buy-in for Americans that are are too rich to get on Medicaid, but too poor to afford private health insurance. So let them buy into Medicare. I mean, depending of their income and stuff, let them buy into Medicare and get some sort of health insurance, even if and it'll make Medicare solvent because people are actually putting more money into it, and I think it solves both problems. Like you have more Americans that are insured with some type of insurance, and we get closer to the single payer solution that I think is eventually going to have to end up happening. So I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, that's my
Yeah,
solution.
I mean, we could have had Medicare. We could have pushed Medicare for all quite a while ago, and we were trying to push what's her name, Ocasio Cortez, into
Yeah,
basically forcing people to take a vote. We knew it wasn't going to pass, but that way we have people on record because these people are all hypocrites. They act like they're for something, but then when the vote comes up, they kibitz behind the scenes about it, and then they vote the other way because they're like, well, it had no chance of passing. Or if they know that it has no chance of passing, sometimes they'll vote for it when later when it actually does have a chance of passing, they won't vote for the same bill. So it's I think we
yeah,
need debates about everything, and we don't do that enough. We should have live debates on a national stage about everything because so many things have happened since the pandemic, but even before that, so many decisions are taking place that don't include us, the taxpayer. Sending all of this money to Ukraine. I never voted for that.
yeah.
But yeah, let's do that. Nobody asked me, but they take our money. So that is taxation with our representation, except it's not even tax money. This is
No,
money. This is bonds, printed money. And the Chinese have been dumping their bonds lately. So what happens now? I don't know. It's a mess.
yeah, it's not really our taxpayer money anymore. It's just the government taking money from China, taking it here, sending it there to Ukraine. It's like a Ponzi scheme. Eventually, if the Chinese decide, no more, we're not going to give any more money, our
Yeah.
economy craters, and we're done for. I mean, that's just simply as simple as the way we put it because the Chinese, I'm sure. I mean, we've been, or at least the Trump has been saber rattling with China a lot in his campaign trail. We got to watch out for China. We got to watch out. We got to do something about China. So it's like, dude, you do realize the Chinese are keeping us afloat, right? I mean, they're buying up our bonds, and now all of a sudden, now they started selling them, as you said, which is interesting development. Like, I mean,
Yeah. And then
they're making a move here to try to take the
BRICS,
U.S. out.
yeah, maybe BRICS. They're looking to transfer everything over there. They're going to have their own currency. Supposedly, they're talking about that.
BRICS, yeah, the new BRICS. It's Russia, China, India, I think, and a lot of countries are getting together to recreate the new multipolar world. Like they're not going to rely on the U.S. and the U.S. dollar anymore. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. I mean, the United States is far too unstable. I was going to say mentally unstable, but yeah, most of our leaders are mentally unstable. So it's a kind of a Freudian slip, but yeah, our country is really unstable. Our leaders are out of control, or too old, out of control, crazy, or just straight up incompetent, dumb. I mean, I don't blame like China and Russia and India and a lot of these countries are saying, yeah, we gotta create our own currency. We gotta recreate the world. I mean, the U.S. cannot be the sole power anymore, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's just interesting to see if it'll work because if it works, Western sanctions won't matter anymore because we can sanction whatever the hell we want, but if they don't use the dollar anymore, it's like, yeah, who cares? Already Russia is proving that sanctions don't matter because their economy is doing really well. I mean, I've seen a lot of like some Americans that live in Russia, like Tara Reid is living out there right now, and she's actually the economy out there is great. I mean, they have the fourth biggest economy in the world, and that's after the sanctions, not even before. So our sanctions didn't do dick to the Russians, but yeah, I mean, the United States being the sole superpower, our time is almost up. And then what? We'll see what happens in the multipolar world, but for now, I mean, we're almost there. We're almost at that point.
Yeah, well, we've been off the gold standard since the early '70s. And I read a quote somewhere. I think, did I mention that to you before? I mentioned it to one of my guests recently, that J.P. Morgan, and I don't know if this is true, but there's a quote going around that he said, uh, "Gold is the only true money. Everything else is credit." And that's basically kind of
He probably I do remember reading something like that. I'm not sure that quote has been attributed to him. I'm not sure if he said it, but I've heard so I heard that saying. I heard somebody say that. So it might have been J.P. Morgan. I wouldn't be surprised because once we went off the gold standard, it's like when it's a fiat currency. So basically, it's whatever the government says is worth. That's how much our dollar's worth. And it's like, yeah, but what about the gold? I mean, most people use gold as currency and not what silver, not even silver. It's literally just a fiat currency. It's like whatever we say it's worth, that's what it's worth. And with inflation being over the roof or through the roof, it's just our dollar is worth less and less. The dollar that we have is worth less. I mean, with $20 back when I was a kid, we used to purchase nearly a full cart of groceries. Now $20 can barely get me eggs and milk at Walmart, like the cheapest places. So yeah, it's not good.
yeah,
Nope.
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's almost 8. So you have any final thoughts before I wrap up?
No, thanks so much for having me on. I always enjoy our conversations, and I
I
hope
do too.
yeah, for sure.
Hopefully we can do this again. Either I'll go on your show, you come on mine pretty soon. I mean, I like the Spanish, our Spanish conversations because it forces me to speak, and I'm fluent, but it's my second language. So there's times where I get confused, and so I'm glad I'm able to speak Spanish on a show like that. To talk politics because I mean it's outside in my family we don't talk politics, so that's why in Spanish that's why it's really difficult. But yeah, I mean I'm glad I'm able to do it, and I want to do it again. Look forward to it pretty soon.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Thanks.
right. Well, yeah. So that'll do it for us this today. I mean, thanks Joe for coming on. You want to promote your stuff? I mean, all his links are in the description box below. But if you want to, real quick, tell people where you can find your show. I mean,
You
that's
can find
fine.
it on Rumble, YouTube, iVoox. It's called Dos Gatos en Tierra de Perros, the number 2, and then Gatos en Tierra de Perros.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find me on X at bourbonroad.com. At Bourbon Road, no .com.
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, all those links in the description box below. If you're gonna look him up, guys. And I'm Angel in the afternoon. I'm here every Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Saturdays I do pro wrestling talk, and I'm gonna probably start streaming more often on Sundays. Not every Sunday, but we'll see. I have different guests on and stuff. And you guys, that'll do it for this show. Hope everybody enjoyed, and I'll gonna see you guys on Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern. Check out Joe's links down below, and we'll see you guys next week.